Anybody call a tank exterminator? Welcome on in. This is Sprues and Studs, and we have yet more JoyToy action figures to review. So these things have been a little bit on my backlog, and I've finally actually had some time to review these things. What are we taking a look at today? Well, you already know, the title states. We are going to be taking a look at the Eradicators that were released by JoyToy probably sometime, I believe it was like December or early January. I can't really remember. It doesn't really matter. So we haven't done a 3-figure review in one video in quite a long time, so I will waste no time, so let's get right down to it. Let's get this Melta boy unboxed. Burner boy number 2. Burner boy sergeant. And obviously we're going to be taking a look at the armament, specifically this gigantic Melta gun over here. And the Melta gun has a lot of detail, and the burnt tip end actually reminds me a lot of the Raider pattern combat bike, where you have these smoked end over here and it gradually cleans up over here. So obviously it would make sense that this tip would be burnt looking, because this is where the heat from all the Melta gun gets generated from. And just looking at the body of the Melta gun, you have your characteristic bolt rifle kind of look over here, especially with the gunmetal parts. And then as we go down, this is a pretty unique thing that we haven't seen quite yet from JoyToy. So this is basically the energy hose that connects the backpack to the Melta gun itself. And this is also made of a very soft plastic. I'm going to guess it's probably made of the same plastic that the cape is made of. And then looking at the backpack itself, this is your Gravis armor backpack. And this particular Marine has something that's actually a little bit different from the rest of the Marines. He's got this little extra ornament dangling down here. Let's put that down. Take a look at the bare head. I always like taking a look at the bare heads on these action figures, mainly because there's a lot of character that you can get from this. So that's why I always like my Space Marines with bare heads. So no departure from what we're used to from JoyToy. Excellent eyes over here, and you get to see, you know, the iris and pupils and a glint over there too. There is shading going on with the heavy brow ridges up here. And then there is also some shading, a little bit haphazard in my opinion, up here with the hair. So just by looking at this, this is just going to look like your regular Gravis armor action figure. There's nothing that really jumps out to me too much. So let's just take a look at the helmet area. Not too bad with the painting up here. Taking a look at the pauldrons, very nicely screened as usual. On this side, very nicely screened as well. Nothing really too much to say about the chest area. The belt area contains the same ornament that you find on his backpack, as well as a combat knife over here. And I believe this combat knife is fully functional too. You can take it out of its sheath, and there you go. You have a combat knife that apparently has still wet paint on it. Then turning around, you get to see more pouches back here. A holstered bolt pistol, as well as a regular pouch. They've been roughly highlighted, and there is no departure from what we're used to seeing from a JoyToy action figure. All right, let's take a look at Eradicator number 2. Eradicator number 2 is packing a beastly looking Multimelta, and the barrel of the Multimelta looks exactly same as the Melta that we just took a look at. And then we're transitioning down here, because this is a Multimelta, you're getting double amount the cable. So I'm actually very impressed with how accurate this looks compared to the Multimeltas that we find on the miniatures. And as we take a look at the backpack, you got also the coupling system over here as well. And the backpack actually is a little bit bigger than your regular backpack. So this is the prior backpack that we're looking at. This is the backpack side by side. So it's got this extra attachment up here to power the might of this Multimelta. This head looks a little bit interesting to me. I think it looks quite a bit out of proportion. This side of the eye is a little bit bigger than this one. Perhaps it's because of all the scarring that's going on, so I'm not sure if this is a purposeful thing that JoyToy decided to do. But again, the level of detail that JoyToy packs in this bare head is amazing to me. And I really like these bare heads, so I'm definitely going to be swapping them out later. Okay, let's move on to Intercessor number 2. And what we're finding is, again, there is no departure too much from what we're seeing on a Gravis armored Space Marine. The helmet area is exactly the same. The pauldrons as well as the Ultramarines chapter symbol is exactly the same as well. Let's just focus in on the bit of the differences here. There's a different instrument panel on this guy's Gravis armor. And then the belt area is a little bit different. You have this scroll-looking ornament that's dangling down. You have this very prominent pouch that is highlighted down here. And then moving back here, you do have an array of pouches that were not featured on the first Space Marine. Now, finally, let's take a look at the Sergeant's Meltagun. And the Sergeant's Meltagun is no departure from what we're seeing. The thing that differentiates the Sergeant from the regular Intercessor is fairly obvious. So if you got a banner that says Fury, and then you have these purity symbols that are dangling down here. And aside from that, it's literally the same look that you get. Let's take a look at the bare head of the Sergeant. The Sergeant has a mechanical sight here. And it's nice that they colored this a little bit different to give this action figure a little bit of extra character, I would say. Once again, eyes perfectly screened. And as you can see here, the shading got a little bit out of control up here, and there is an errant red mark, unfortunately. All right, let's take a look at the body of this Eradicator Sergeant. So the first thing that I saw when I was unboxing this is this weird angle that this head is tilted in. I was wondering exactly what was causing it, and it looks like this Gravis hood area is a little bit malformed. So it's leaning this way, and it's also causing the head to lean this way. So you have to push the head like this to get it straight. And unfortunately, this area here, there's a ton of gap and there's no gap whatsoever. And if you just naturally let it go, it'll just pop back into this weird kind of tilted look. So that's about it with the head. Flipping around here, same pauldrons, minus this side, which indicates that this guy's the Sergeant. Chest area is exactly the same. And you've got this instrument panel that you find on the Eradicator with the Multimelta. Then belt area, you get a different kind of ornament that's dangling down. We've seen these things before. And once again, there is another combat knife. I'm going to take it out. And this one's a lot better because it doesn't have paint all over it. Okay, I'm going to pop the head off of this Sergeant. Okay. Well, this is interesting. I've never had a point in which I've accidentally popped off the helmet only, and here we are able to actually see the connecting mechanism for the action figure for the head. Cool. All right, let's put the bare head on. See, the bare head is actually much better. However, you get to see the malformed hood back here. Okay, let's outfit the Sergeant with his Meltagun. Interesting about this Meltagun is there's actually motion here, so it allows you to actually pose it however you want. Another thing that I noticed as I was trying to do B-reel is that the fingers on this hand doesn't actually wrap around this Meltagun very well, and it's a lot of things that people have been commenting in the comment section for these JoyToy action figures. It's much too small, unfortunately, so I would really like to see if they can fix the sizing of this thing. This is pretty much what it looks like when the Space Marine is actually wielding his weapon. It just doesn't look quite right. The index finger, as you can see here, doesn't even reach the trigger area, so it makes for an incomplete hold. So that's one big critique that I have to point out to you all. And then with this area, you just slot it in right here, as you can see. And then we're going to attach the backpack to the back of the Space Marine, like so. So that's the Sergeant outfitted. All right, let's fit the Multimelta Space Marine with his armaments. So I'm going to say one thing that is nice is this actually doesn't have a trigger area, so the Space Marine is kind of able to hold the Multimelta a little bit better. But as you can see, it actually doesn't really wrap completely around. You've only got pretty much 2 fingers that actually are holding it. All right, all 3 figures have been reviewed. Time to wrap this up with my usual final musings.
I'm hiding.
So everybody, what actually did you think of these action figures based off of my review? Is this something that you would get? Is this something that you would pass on? Well, let's figure out what my thoughts on it are. As a Space Marine unit, I love Eradicators. Meltaguns are so badass because they are literally tank killers, night killers as well as special character killers. These things are supremely badass in the tabletop game, and I really like to see this stuff completely translated into action figure form. What are the things that I specifically like on these things? Well, I really like the Melta gun itself, how there's this transition of color from the burnt end to the lighter end. It just looks certifiably badass to me, and it looks really nice how the transition is. I really like it how JoyToy has supplied us with 3 bare heads too. That typically doesn't usually happen in a version 2.0 figure. Most of the times we're just only given the helmeted versions, so it's nice to actually see 3 bareheaded versions. So there are a few gripes that I have to point out, and probably the biggest gripe that I'll have to say is just how the hand is wielding the Melta-gun trigger. I don't like it how these JoyToy action figures aren't able to wrap their hands around the handle. It makes for kind of a fidgety kind of positioning, and I would actually like it for it to grip the whole entire way. And then second of all, unfortunately, the painting on these action figures are completely true to JoyToy form. There are misses, there are random streaks. Is this set actually worth you getting? Well, maybe one, I would have to say. I'm a big Eradicator fan. I love running them in my Warhammer army, so that's why I got the whole entire set. I really like these Space Marines a lot, so that's why I got them. Anyways, thank you all for watching as usual. I appreciate your support. You all are great. Thank you, and I'll see you all in the next one.